Coming in at number 10, we have the Demon Summoner. Oh, hello there. What would you do if you came across this in the woods? Now on first glance, I would assume it was just there as a prank to freak me out, but perhaps if I knew that this satanic idol was now in the Ed and Lorraine Warren Museum for the Occult, I might be a little bit more freaked out. It seems that a hunter was out in the woods one day when he came across this horned beastie with wide blue eyes. At first, he didn't quite notice it as it blended in with the woodland, but then he saw it, started, and decided to investigate. The man said that when he walked up to the doll he felt a very, very horrible feeling. All of his energy was drained and he was filled with dread. He said he turned away from the idol and then saw a man with white hair wearing a black cloak walking exactly opposite to him. He asked the man how to get out of the woods, and in silence the cloaked figure simply pointed. Haunted by the feeling that the doll in the woods gave him, the hunter called up paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. It seemed that the horned idol is used for satanic rituals for summoning evil spirits. The investigators went to look for it for themselves in order to check it out, and Lorraine was particularly affected by the piece, saying it sent her into a catatonic state for days. She even claimed that it made her levitate. This scary item found in the woods now lives in her basement in Monroe, Connecticut. Coming into number 9, we have the cabin. Who lives in a cabin in the woods, and what do they do for the majority of their time? Well, you may not want to know the answer. Mark Andre worked for the Environmental Services in Arcata, California, and was marking trees in the deep, deep woods when he came across a cabin. Okay, anyone seen Cabin in the Woods? Because it is terrifying, and this is like that. An actual cabin in the woods. The structure was around 12 feet by 15 feet and properly constructed. They knew what they were doing. Andre said, "I didn't see it until I was around 12 feet away from it. It was a perfect out of the way spot where it wouldn't be detected." Now he went to investigate further, and it seemed as if the cabin was abandoned but had been lived in recently. There was a lot of tin food, a number of knives in the hut, an eclectic selection of books including Catch Me If You Can, and a manifesto called Difference Everywhere, which included statements such as "community creates its own outlaws." What outlaw was hiding deep in the woods? We don't know because they were never found. Coming into number 8, we have the giant spider web. Oh hell no. Absolutely not. This looks like some kind of woodland Halloween decoration. In 2007, a walker was out for a hike in the woodland outside of Dallas when they came across this truly disconcerting scene. Honestly, huge spiderwebs covering large trees. If I walked through this, I would actually run in the other direction for fear of being eaten by a giant tarantula. It turns out the menaces behind the mess are Guatemalan long-jawed spiders, which do look horrifying, and they're only an inch long, so maybe not quite tarantulas, but still, spooky spiders. That would be enough to get me screaming. Anyway, the web came from an infestation of them, meaning there were millions, yes you did hear me correctly, millions of spiders in the area. It also happened in a similar part of Texas in 2015. These spiders need to be stopped. Coming in at number 7, we have the Switch. I found this picture posted on a chat forum for mountain biking. Now one biker was off-road going through the woods and came across what looked like a satanic lectern and a wooden book. How long it had been there? Well, who knows. Now they opened up the book and found a switch. What it turns on, or indeed off, again, nobody knows. Coming into number 6, we have the sour pile. Sometimes things are freaky because they're so inexplicable. The strangest things provoke the biggest questions. There is definitely a story behind this strange discovery. I just don't know what it is. Lumber posted this image to Reddit last year, simply saying, "A giant pile of zested lemons found in the woods." Like, I'll say. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds of peeled lemons in a pile, but like, why? This scares me more than a number of points on this list because I've just got so many questions. One of the commenters, Junk Pile, wrote, "Perhaps it's a diversion. They didn't notice the shallow grave directly behind them." I mean, that's a good point. What were the lemons hiding? Coming into number 5, we have the mask. So I do a lot of hiking and I've seen a few creepy things, mostly like snakes in the path, but I can't imagine what I would do if I was hiking along a trail, just enjoying the fresh air, and then look down to find this. Like, hey there bud, what are you staring at? This is a metal mask that by the look of the oxidization is a copper mask. It kind of looks a bit like the one that Hannibal Lecter was forced to wear in The Silence of the Lambs. There is a long history of prisoners being made to wear masks in jail. Now, is this the mask of an escaped prisoner? The mask was found by a hiker who posted their discovery on Reddit, sending shivers down the spine of the internet. Coming into number 4, we have the pipes. When you see weird pipes poking out of the ground in the wood, you know that that isn't the full story. This story comes from northern Germany, where two friends were trying to investigate where the pipes went, and did they find out. It seems that they discovered the entrance to a secret bunker by opening up a wooden lid with a crowbar. They then found steps and bravely went inside. There was a long corridor and a series of small rooms like prison cells. Some of the rooms were bigger and some of them were flooded. Now the rusted metal in the water gave it a reddish tinge like blood. They found abandoned shoes and gloves too. Who did they belong to? The hiker described the day as the spookiest trip of my life. I certainly see that. That would terrify me. Coming into number 3, we have the skin. In August 2016, a walker in Westbrook, Maine spotted this huge piece of shed snake skin on a trail. They then photographed it and showed it to the police. The discovery of a 100 feet long piece of skin came as reports of a huge serpent were made months before. Now on investigation, it was concluded that the skin came from a python, estimated to be around 10 or more feet in length. Why the skin was so long, I'm not sure. At the time, police warned locals to be on the lookout for a snake on the loose. Now the mystery reptile was dubbed Wessie and even earned itself a folk song and was honoured by a local brewery that named an IPA after it. I have to say, I feel a lot better about a beer than I do a giant snake. Wessie has still never been found and could be on the loose even to this day in the woods of Maine. Maybe she has a band of not so little Wessies alongside her too. Ugh. Coming into number 2, we have the Shrine to the Missing. In a turn of events similar to the Blair Witch Project, a hiker by the name of James Rankin discovered a truly worrying shrine in the woods near Long Island's Berkeley-Jackson County Park. There was a collection of around 25 real missing persons photographs taped to trees, a collapsed wooden cage surrounding a filled hole. Rankin recorded his findings, and here is a clip.
Anyway, I'll cut right to the chase because I might die. Look what these are.
The missing people's posters were of real people, which is pretty stressful. It seems that Rankin was genuinely worried that he'd stumbled across a murderer's lair. The hiker also found what looked like a campsite with a tent, dirty bedding, open cans of food, and a shovel. To me, this genuinely looks like the campsite of a murderer.
At number 8, we have Yeti. Russian dashcam videos are literally the best thing in the world. They capture everything. You see gunfights, explosions, car crashes, and now footage of a mythical beast walking through the snow. Let's check it out. Imagine seeing that running around in the wild. I would hope that it isn't like eating people because we're like cousins or something. Aren't we related to Yetis? I don't know if they're real. But these guys are super freaked out, obviously, because they just saw something that most people think don't exist. I don't know what they're saying because it's in Russian, but if anyone cracks the code, please leave it in the comments below. By crack the code, I mean if anyone speaks Russian. At number 7, we have strange howling. Canada has endless forests that go on forever in every direction. There could be anything lurking inside them. There's everything from things that are deadly to things that are pure and innocent. And this mystery howling could be either. Based on what I can hear in this video, I'm going to lean towards dangerous. It's unknown what could be making those noises. Some wildlife experts think it could be some sort of large animal, but that kind of behavior is very unusual. There are those videos where cats try to like impersonate dogs, and this could be one of those. Just a different animal like a mountain lion trying to impersonate a wolf or something, or maybe trying to impersonate fear itself. At number 6, we have more howling. It seems like terrifying howling coming from the deep dark woods is a lot more normal than we thought, but it doesn't make it any less scary. We have some more footage from a separate incident in Wisconsin. It's thought that it could be some sort of wounded animal crying out for help. It sounds like it could maybe be a wolf. Let's check it out. That is enough to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. This video sounds a little bit more animalistic than the last, but what kind of creature could make that noise? If it is a wolf, what could be lurking in the woods that is so powerful and threatening that it could make a wolf cry out in fear like that? At number 5, we have an unexpected guest. You're hiking through the woods and you expect to see some nice birds, maybe a cute family of squirrels, but you forget that there's also a bunch of animals that live in the woods that would gladly eat you.
There's a mountain lion right here.
Holy crap, this guy had one of the top predators in the forest just walking up on him like it was nobody's business. This thing has no fear, and this is a few minutes into the video. This cougar has been following him for a while. He stands his ground and tries to get the beast to flee, and I guess the big boy was a little camera shy because he eventually turns and leaves. This guy got very lucky. I feel like those things don't usually turn and run tail. If they want to come at you, then you are done for. At number 4, we have more screaming. Even more screaming. Che, how many screaming videos are you going to include on this list? Well, I had to include this one because it seems like it could be some sort of ape-like creature screaming from the woods, so it could be a Bigfoot, and you can't have a list of scary things caught on video in a forest or in the woods without Bigfoot stuff. It's so necessary. I mean, it could be anything, but that doesn't sound like any sort of animal I've ever heard. Some people have made claims that it could be a howler monkey, but the video was taken in Georgia and there ain't no howler monkeys in Georgia, I'll tell you that much. At number 3, we have a man in the woods. If you spend a night in an abandoned hotel in the middle of the woods, there's a good chance that you're going to run into some sort of weird stuff that'll make you want to pee your pants. This was the plan of German YouTubers Iblali. They wanted to do something spooky for their fans. The footage was pretty creepy, and after they uploaded it, their fans found a little Easter egg. I don't know if you guys saw what was lurking in the shadows, but there was a man standing there, and they didn't notice that he was there until after they uploaded the video. Some people saw it and then highlighted it to the YouTubers. So who is this dude and why was he just following them in the woods? At number 2, we have Midnight Terror. So much of what happens in this video is horrifying. It's from the YouTube channel called MindSeeTV, and they decide to go find a bunch of condemned buildings in the middle of the forest in the middle of the night. Let's just go down the list of things that happen. First, someone starts following them as they're walking through the woods. You never see this person, but you can hear them whistling and you can hear their footsteps. Next, they hear this mystery stalker get very close to them, and they actually set up some bell tripwires, and the guy trips over them and they hear the bells ringing. Then they find the building, they go inside, and then they use this device to communicate with ghosts. This whole adventure is just one giant nope for me. I don't want anything to do with this, and I never want to hang out with these guys. Oh my god, they just seem like they attract terror or something. I don't like it.
Starting at number 10, Army Base Stairs. From Reddit user IronBoy21, 3 months ago, they shared their own story. This one is not in the woods, but I say it's a chilling story about stairs nonetheless. This user was on a North American Treaty Organization deployment, or NATO deployment, with the Army, and they were the person that sticks their head out of the hatch to look around while someone else is driving a tank. Now, while driving through a huge open field, they spot a staircase and decide to stop because it looks like it'll lead to a crawl space and it seems cool enough to check out basically. They stop and approach it and find some strange markings on the staircase. And then at this point, we know I'd be running, like turning around and running for it. But this group decides now we're gonna go check it out. And well, they get inside this strange little space that's big enough for maybe 3 people and find more strange markings, and they find human bones. The person who wrote this thinks a family hiding from war might have hidden in the cellar, but they still think it's odd since it's the only house for at least 100 miles around, since it's in an army training area. And then they end the passage with 3 little words. So, I don't know. They just don't know what happened. But from that mystery, let's move on to number 9. Island Forest Stairs. This is from Coated Lemons on Reddit about 3 months ago as well. They were on an Ohio camping trip up to Lake Erie on a small unknown island a friend told them about. So he sets up camp to eat and like hang out and then decides I'm gonna explore the island a bit before it gets dark. 10 minutes in, he finds a structure that he investigates to find It's a stone staircase, but there's no indication that the stairs are remains from a house. There's no rotting wooden structures, no bricks, nothing of the sort. So at that point he felt nothing odd, and he was like, and I quote, "Hell yeah, gonna go back to the tent, read a book." But that's when his mood shifted. He got a horrible wave of anxiety and that he should run back to safety. But then again, he thought about the stairs. Then he felt compelled to go to them with his mind in a fog. He said, "It was like a wave of indifference and curiosity washed over me, and I had this compulsion to go to them. I drifted over to the bottom, staring at the top. I was staring like a zombie, slowly walking up 2 steps at a time. I felt catatonic. I felt so out of it, so mentally blank, like something in me completely took over and I just acted out of primal steps. I was 3/4 of the way up when I snapped out of it and I ran. I ran as fast as I could. I felt so scared, like in my chest I was tearing up. I was running for my goddamn life." And so after that scary incident I just recounted, he got so mixed up with directions he ended up back at the stairs, freaked out again, and then ran again and somehow made it back to his tent. Then even more weird stuff happened that night, but to keep us on track with stairs, I'll just let you know that once he left, he came back again to the same island with a friend, and they searched the entire island but could never find those stairs again. So the mysterious stairs that gave that crazy feeling, who knows where they went. At number 8, Staircase Creek. This next story is from Redditor Sia Vree from a while back, and when she was younger she would go hiking in the woods in California, and one time she had a really trippy experience. She was a little lost admittedly and found a creek so that she could follow it downstream, because it's recommended that if you're lost, follow the path of water downstream if you're lost. And at some point she had to step into the water to follow the creek because the sides of the creek were too high, and one of those times she found herself walking down moss-covered stairs. She couldn't really see the bottom of where they went and was nearly slipping due to the water running over the mossy steps. But then, even though it was around noon, the sky turned dark and everything went quiet. This is when she truly tripped and fell, and she says she fell into the dark. She woke up alone in a meadow with marks on her arms with no trace of the staircase or the stream. So the staircase and her just kind of got mixed up. I don't know. But on to number 7, Phantom Stairs. So this story of stairs is from user Pope_Fenderson_2 on Reddit. 4 years ago, this person left a story from an experience they had as a child. They were out with older relatives in bright daylight when they spotted stairs about 60 yards away and walked towards them until they were about 20 feet away. They said the stairs were made of wood, clean and polished with no dust and no leaves. Kind of weird. And once they were that close, the light around them got dimmer and they looked back at their family. But their family looked much farther away than they actually were, and then a feeling of sheer terror hit them, so they just ran back. Once they got back to their family and told them what happened, they looked back, gestured, and the stairs were gone. When this poster's uncle heard the story, he became stern, saying, "There are things that appear different every time, these stairs or anything else, and these things lead to the spirit world, so avoid them." After this occurrence, the commenter lays down medicine and says a prayer of protection, then gets away whenever they see these stairs, and they recommend smudging yourself at the end of the day if you come across these things yourself. If you aren't worried or anything, at least, sage and smudging, it smells good, so it's never a bad idea. But on to number 6, Waterproof Stairs. From Melandon on Reddit, also 4 years ago, they went on a hike in the Cascades when he found 6 carpeted wood steps out in the woods and decided to investigate. It had begun to rain, but he wasn't fazed. And he kind of felt they were odd, but when he went up to them, the world kind of tilted slightly and sounded different. Like tinny different. And then as he went to step on the bottom step, he found himself not wanting to, and then sat down on the steps instead. Then he kicked off his boots and stepped on the carpet in his socks, which was oddly clean, but even more strange, it was dry. It had been raining for a while at this point, so that was kind of odd. And then he walked to the top of the stairs in his socks, and he described it as if the sound shifted even more, as if the sound was forming to a point, and then he stood there, was like, and went back down and left. So nothing bad happened, but it was a strange experience because it wasn't raining on the stairs and the sound was weird. But on to number 5, Protected Stairs. Now this was posted by Von Meowstein about 3 years ago, and they loved wandering in the woods either alone or with friends, and they'd come across stairs every often, not really thinking much of it. Then one time they were out looking with friends and came upon a dog that looked kind of like a wolf, aka a husky, and it was sitting by a set of stairs. And so the writer of this story approaches the dog that turns out to be friendly, but then wants to check out the stairs to see if there's any puppies, like I'd do that. But the thing is, when they do this, the husky tries to nudge them back to their group. And at the time, they thought this was the possibility of the dog trying to get some food from them, but on second thought, maybe it was a warning away from the stairs. They kind of left kind of confused, but if anything, the dog was protecting them. But on to number 4, survival stairs. Redditor Nizegard posted their own story about when they were on an island southeast of Alaska on an army survival test. Having few supplies, living in like a dense forest and living off nature, he came across a random staircase in the middle of this dense forest. His army buddies write off this account of this experience because he was out alone in the wood for 3 days, but he swears he saw this. A staircase that was perfectly clean, just stark in the middle of the forest, no fallen leaves on it or anything. Then there was a strange feeling telling him not to investigate it when he puts his feet up on the staircase. Then he feels nauseous as the sounds around him fade away, something we've heard before, and then he snaps out of it, running far away without looking back. He says it freaks him out to this day, and it was an experience that came out of nowhere, and then now still, no one believes him. I feel like a lot of people are getting the nauseous in the sounds. But let's see where it leads with number 3. Stairs lead to fall. Now this is from a deleted account, but a pair of people found remnants of an old house that must have been around from the 50s or the 60s, and the house was gone, but some furniture remained, plus an eerie metal staircase. So this guy that found it, plus his friend Matt, found it weird too, because there was like moss winding around it and some green mold, but Matt decided to check it out. This story goes downhill from here. Matt made it to the top, but when he got there, he became so nauseous that he threw up and fell from the top of the stairs. Although it was about an 8-foot drop, Matt let out a scream because it turns out he had gruesomely broken his leg. After some quick first aid, the two noticed the woods became silent, except for a scream similar to the one Matt let out when he fell, heard further away. Then it was closer, and it had a lower tone and a kind of sound like it was wheezing. So they got up to start to leave, and there it was again, the wheezing scream, maybe 30 feet away, and then they tried to move as fast as they could. The screams from then on became more distant until they were finally out of the woods and able to get Matt some needed medical attention. But the person who wrote this said they moved away since then and warned people to stay away from things that make them feel off. That's not an experience you want to have, really. On to number 2, stairs all the way down. Now, Redditor NebR_stairs from 4 years ago made their account just to talk about their stairs they found southeast in Nebraska. They were with some friends investigating the ruins of an abandoned farm, and they discovered a staircase going down. A lot of them we see are going up, and they say it was separate from the house ruins there, made out of brick, well engineered, and the group walked down for at least 3 flights of stairs with this horrible sense of dread. They described it as time slipping, sounds going away, and their flashlights going in and out. And they said that the stairs continued further down the 3 flights, but water limited the rest of their descent down, so who knows how far down they could go. But on to number 1, Amazon stairs. And this was from V838 on Reddit. So this is a story from a commenter's grandma that lived in an indigenous community in the Amazon long ago. Now, people tended to get lost around the area, including this story that her grandma told about an old man. He left to go check on the fishing nets in the river but was lost for 2 weeks, only found after women doing their laundry in the river found him trying to empty water out of a canoe with a bowl while it was raining. Now, the older man said that when he was out he saw a set of stairs in the forest and climbed them. Then he only remembers being in that canoe out in the water for 2 hours, but he was missing for 2 weeks. People had been looking for him and had been to that area. And then another thing, he said he was taking out water from the canoe because there was a hole in it, but that's not the case. There were no holes apparently, and yes, there was water, but that's because it was raining. And he had begun to damage the wood in the canoe from dragging the bowl he was using across the same area, so how long was he really out there? What happened with the staircase? I want to know. It's just weird, man, you know? It's kind of weird.
At number 9, we have take a seat. So you're driving on a road next to the woods and it's perfectly nice. And everything seems to be normal. No crazy ghost lady sitting in the middle of the road. And then what do you know? You come across a crazy ghost lady sitting in the middle of the road. I love the reaction to the whole thing. When they see her, they're like, nope, no thank you. We're just gonna pull the car around in reverse. Sorry, we're getting out of here, bye. That's the biggest nope reaction I've seen in a spooky video ever. Most people are like, oh, should we go investigate? What's going on? Let's bring a camera and leave behind all the weapons we could use to protect ourselves. This is how you're supposed to deal with these situations. You see this kind of stuff and you go, no thank you. I would like to live and I'm going to go home and forget what I saw. Keep the blinders on and keep living. No ghost stuff for me. At number 8, we have the most haunted woods in America. You go walking around in a place like that at night and you are just asking for trouble. The YouTuber Paranormal Files Highlight did what most of us would never do and decided to spend a night in the most haunted woods in America, just walking around. It's the Freedom Falls River State Forest, and there are hundreds of rumors about these woods. People talk about bodies being buried all over the woods and satanic rituals taking place there. While walking through these woods, this YouTuber came across this.
It's damn noisy and it's like it's following me.
It's a little hard to hear, but I've watched the video enough times to confirm that I can hear the whales in the background. And it goes on for most of the video. It sounds like someone is yelling out in pain. Later he comes across a rundown chimney just sitting in the middle of the woods, and for whatever reason it scares the hell out of him and he just runs out of there faster than Usain Bolt. At number 7, we have Crazy Guy in the Woods. The YouTuber Phil the Thrill was just trying to enjoy some good old-fashioned dirt biking when some psycho stopped him in the middle of a trail.
Whose quad is this? I don't even know. Yo, dude. What's up, dude?
What do you mean, what's up?
What are you doing?
This guy claimed that he owned the property, but there were no signs up and he didn't provide any identification. He just popped out holding a gun and thought that would be a good way to do business with someone. Maybe try talking to people first before you start threatening them with firearms. He wanted Phil's name and address, but he was like, no way, dude. You're just a crazy dude in the woods wearing a mask. I'm not gonna tell you where I live. If anyone comes here and starts riding around dirt bikes, you might just end up blaming it on me. So he tells Phil to get off the bike and then starts firing into the woods, just shooting his gun off. Holy crap. After that, Phil runs away and the guy literally rides through the woods trying to hunt down Phil and the other people he was with. Just talk to people first, and if they don't listen, then start shooting at them. It's not the other way around. At number 6, we have Stalker in the Woods. I think the woods are lightning rods for all sorts of crazy people. They just love to be hidden, and it increases their ability to creep around. Like this. Let's check out this clip.
What was that? Whoa!
What's this dude doing in the background like that? He's just creeping around the house. Don't do that, dude. It's weird. Apparently this guy's been doing this for a few days, so these brothers decided that they would get some footage of the strange man walking around. I think they should have just thrown water balloons filled with pee at him, and then that would have taught him the lesson. He would never come around again. Get pee thrown at you, it kind of ruins your day. At number 5, we have clowning around. I think if you see someone walking around dressed up as a clown trying to scare people, it should be legal to attack them mob style. Frankly, even if you see clowns just walking around trying to make people happy, I think you should be able to do the same thing. That's just me. I think clowns should be outlawed, but who cares? Two brothers were running through the woods when they came across this dude just strolling around.
Yo, does he have a knife? Yo, Patrick, he has a knife. Dude, what the?
Just your casual clown psycho walking around with a knife over a suspension bridge. You know, really normal behavior, nothing that a dangerous person would do. What he's doing is basically meditation. If you want to up the crazy factor on this video, it was taken at 7:30 in the morning and he's all done up in clown gear. That means this dude got up at 6 a.m. to get ready, drive to the trail, and then started walking around. If you're getting up at 6 a.m. to scare people dressed up as a clown, they should just lock you up, no trial. You're too motivated and you are too crazy. At number 4, we have Yogi Bear. Hey boo boo, you want to go in the woods and see if we can find a runner for some lunch? That's my best Yogi Bear impression. This dude had the biggest scare of his life. This kind of thing makes me never want to go for a run again. Well, I'm also not great at running, so it's probably just me looking for excuses not to go out there. But you have to admit that this is a pretty good excuse.
Holy sh**.
I feel like you can hear him poop his pants as he runs away. He speeds up so fast. That's the kind of speed you want at all times. You want to be hitting that bear about to kill you speed, yet you gotta have the effort, get it in you. Also, you can hear the terror in his voice, which is totally understandable. There is a 1,500-pound beast trying to take you as a snack, and not in the sexy, fun version of a snack. He's literally going to eat your bone marrow. At number 3, we have people hate dirt bikes. Alright, let's head over to Russia. They got a lot of woods and people over there that you don't want to mess around with. Every time I see a video from Russia, it involves violence and some strange music that I've never heard before, but it slaps pretty hard. Well, the guy in our next clip was riding through the woods on a dirt bike when some dude walks out with an axe. This guy is even crazier than the other guy because he doesn't even own the land or anything. He's just pissed off because the dirt bike is damaging the trails and destroying mushrooms. This guy's ready to kill someone over mushrooms. The guy tries to strangle him to death. Just so you know, the dirt biker overpowers him and then pins the crazy guy to the ground. He tells him to calm down and then he lets him get up, and then the crazy guy starts attacking him again with a stick, but the dirt biker gets away in one of the funniest escapes I have ever seen. At number 2 we have albino Bigfoot. Who knew there was something that was even more rare than the original Bigfoot? This guy must be worth more than all the gold Walt Disney was buried with. Also, some of you at home might be like, isn't albino Bigfoot just a Yeti? Well, apparently not. I'm not super educated on the inner workings of Bigfoot lifestyle, but from the research I've done, these two seem like very different creatures. And I know we've had Bigfoot on this list already, but this is different footage and it actually scared the hell out of me, so I wanted you guys to watch it so you could have the same experience. Now, who knows, this might be fake. I mean, all the Bigfoot footage that we have seen might be fake, but this one is terrifying. It has some creepy sunken eyes, and at first I thought it was some mummy or some sort of undead creature, and it moves so fast. That's part of why I think it might be real. The part that makes me think it's not real is how chill this guy's reaction is. He's just like, oh, what was that? He's not praying to God that the thing doesn't smash through the branches and rip him to pieces. And for our number 1 spot, we have Swamp Lizard Thing. Okay, this last one was filmed during some night fishing. Right when you think everything is going normal and there's nothing to be worried about, you see something like this.
What do you think that was? What was it? Do you see it where? Whoa. Holy crap.
What is that? I have no idea, but it made all the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Later in the video, the thing turns to the camera and you can see it sort of posture up, like it's saying, don't follow me or I'll eat your whole family and then your kids and then all the people you ever known in your whole life, and I'll chew your bones. That's what it looks like. I don't know what this thing is, but I hope that I never ever see it in my life. It's gross and it makes me feel bad in my tum-tum. At number 10, we have Mom and the Kids. I don't know about you guys, but if I see some bears walking around in the woods, I'm not going to stop to take a video. I'm going to be running in the other direction and tripping anyone I pass so they end up barefoot and I don't. That's what you call survival of the fittest, especially if you see a mama bear with her cubs, because outside of males during mating season, this is when bears can be at their most dangerous. This guy in the video seems like he cares more about catching this shot, which does have 3 million views, instead of his own safety.
I'm walking backwards on the trail back to the camp. I'm walking down the trail.
This is way too close for comfort. That bear is like 15 feet away and he's so close to becoming a chew toy by one of the largest land predators. That's a good way to end up a news article about a man who was mauled to death. Although the video did get 3 million views, as I mentioned before, I can see that as kind of a good trade-off, which brings up the question, how many views are you willing to risk your life for? I would say no less than 10 million and an appearance on Ellen. At number 9, we have Mystery Creeper. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the day or in the deep darkness of night. If there's something in the woods that will find you and try to ruin your picnic that you've planned for your partner. You thought ants were bad for a picnic? Try a creepy creature that was caught on a shaky camera. There isn't enough bug spray that would fix this mood killer. I mean, the camera work is so shaky that the cameraman should shoot one of the next Safdie brother movies. Those shots that those guys use give me so much anxiety, but that's like the point of the movie, I guess. Anyways, back on topic. These guys seem to be legitimately scared of whatever is creeping in the woods and watching them. After they try to capture this unknown thing on camera, they hightail it out of there into the woods and run for safety. At number 8, we have Breathing Woods. I just want you guys to check out this video so you can freak out like I did when I first watched this clip. Let's see what's going on. This looks like the end of the world as we know it. It looks like the earth finally is self-aware and is going to start to destroy all of us because we've been polluting for too long. But I'm happy to let you know that this is not the end of the world yet. This happens from deforestation. With less trees in the area, the wind has more contact with smaller trees that move and bend, the wind pulling up their roots to make it look like the ground is breathing. At number 7, we have, is that a hyena? Strange noises coming from the deep dark forest has been a recurring theme on these lists of scary things caught on camera in the woods. So I thought we should keep the tradition going by showing you a cackle coming from the woods that sounds so sinister it makes me never want to go camping again. Jesus, that is not the sound you want to hear in the middle of the night. It sounds like a clown crossed with a hyena from The Lion King. Anything that is making that noise in the middle of the night should not be approached. Now there is a chance that it is something harmless, like a weird bird, or maybe it's something scary but not supernatural, like a wolf. But no matter what it is, I don't want to look at it. Finding out what kind of creature makes that horrifying noise isn't worth it for me. At number 6, we have Ghost in the Woods. This is why I keep telling you guys to bring your cameras with you when you go walking around in the woods. There's a chance you'll see something terrifying, and then it will give me more stuff to put onto the channel. This guy was walking down a trail next to the Stansted Airport when he caught this on camera. I'm a little bit speculative on whether or not this one is real. I threw it on the list because at first glance the video did scare the hell out of me, and there is a backstory to this ghost sighting. Apparently a young boy died getting hit by a train next to this trail, and the ghost still haunts the area. But after watching it a few times, I noticed that the ghost kind of keeps the same position, like his arms stay in the same place as he floats around, so it kind of makes it look staged. But I just wanted to throw it on here so we could see what you guys think. Please let me know if you think this one is real in the comments. 5. We have the black-haired woman. A drone was flying over a large forested area to capture some footage of the landscape when they found this. Who is that just hanging in the forest? She looks like she was pulled right out of The Grudge. The guy controlling the drone doesn't get close enough, and I understand why. You don't want to risk losing your expensive drone to what could be a crazy person, but part of me wishes that he went in for a closer look so I could really see who this person was. At number 4, we have dog cam. When you hear the word dog cam, you think that it's going to be a super cut of shots of dogs eating snacks, then napping, and then maybe licking its own bum or something like that. And then it would go back to napping. But the last thing you think you would be seeing is a mythical creature caught on camera. This dog was bolting through the woods when it comes across what looks like a giant Bigfoot just strolling around. Now I'm kind of split on this one. I don't know if this one is real or staged. On one hand, I think if anything was able to get close to a Bigfoot, it would be a dog. Like, they're both animals, and the Bigfoot might be smart enough to know that this guy isn't gonna spill the beans. He'd be like, hey, we just saw each other, you can't say anything, you're a dog, it's all cool. Also, if dogs could talk, I don't think they would ever snitch. They seem very loyal. But at the same time, I think a dog would be able to smell a Bigfoot, and it would know to keep away from it. I assume a Bigfoot has a very strong smell. But to counter my own point, maybe the smell is what attracted the dog to the beast in the first place. At number 3, we have the San Jose alien. Photos are still capturing things on camera, so for this one, I have a picture, and it's just as creepy as anything filmed. Back in 2016, after San Jose had a record high of UFO sightings, there was a strange creature that was found in the grass that looks like it might have fallen right out of a spaceship. Gianna Peponas found this thing just sitting in the woods. She wrote that she heard a scream coming from the side of her house, and then she went to find this thing laying in the grass. Right away, everyone on the internet was calling this thing an alien, but I have a different theory. It's not an alien, but an alien experiment. The aliens came to Earth, got some samples, did some experiments, made a little creature thing, and then they were like, ew, this thing sucks, and they dumped it out of the poop chute of the spaceship, and then they flew off into space. I'm no science man, but I think I'm right. At number 2, we have an old witch. We're heading over to Russia to find one of the most unsettling videos I have ever seen on this channel. This guy was driving down a dark trail through the woods at night when he came across this. So the whole video is in Russian, so I can't understand him, but it seems like he is terrified. He keeps backing up, and this strange woman just keeps slowly walking towards the car, but they're in the middle of nowhere, so how did this lady get out there? At number 1, we have Forest Stalker. I snagged this one off the YouTube channel Sweet Dreams. It's a couple of young explorers going to check out the North Georgia woods. These dudes probably thought they were gonna see some bugs, maybe a raccoon or two. The scariest thing they probably thought they might come across is a skunk with its tail lifted, ready to shoot some stink at them, but the last thing they expected was to see this.
What is that? Dude, what is that?
That's why you don't go looking around in the woods at night, because there might be a big scary monster in there. Now this video might be fake, who knows? The creature looks sort of humanoid, so it might have been one of their friends that got dressed up so they could make the video to scare all of us at home. Or there's a humanoid creature in the North Georgia woods and it wants to kill anyone who gets close to it. I'm gonna take the safe route and never leave my apartment again.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the skeleton. This particular Reddit user worked in the woods for a living, so he had come across many random things in his time. On this particular occasion though, he was quite spooked. He was walking through the woods when he saw a full skeleton of a cow tied together by twigs and twine sitting on a log. Yes. Whoever made it placed it so that it was sitting on a log. Then they also put a neat pile of bones in front of it. I'm sorry, come again? Somebody had taken the bones of a cow and decided to make a craft project out of it. Whew, terrifying. He said that he almost fainted. He went on to comment about how odd it was, considering they were so far off the road. But sir, I would have to argue that it was odd because it was a cow skeleton tied together, sitting on a log. No explanation necessary. Totally creepy. In our number 9 spot, we have the lab. In this story, a guy was walking through the woods, scouting for a hunting spot. As he was walking, without even realizing what he stumbled upon, he walked straight up to a tent where illegal substances were being made. A type of lab, if you will. The second he realized this, he skedaddled. When he was reflecting later, he thought that the smell should have been a dead giveaway. He didn't even realize until he was standing in front of it looking at a bunch of garbage under camo tarps. To be fair, I think a lot of people would have been slow to process this. It's not every day that you stumble across this in the woods. And this encounter though is terrifying to either be caught by the cops near or to be found by the owner because they might be crazy and may try to do something rash in order to protect themselves. In our number 8 spot, we have the 3 bears. This story seems like a retelling of the 3 little bears, without the hot and cold porridge and, the cute hard and soft beds. My favorite part. This is the story of a Reddit user who was walking in the woods one day when he had the strangest feeling that he was being watched. He suddenly began to get a little paranoid, and so his pace quickened as he walked toward where the park warden was parked. When he was about 100 meters from the car, he turned around to yet again check if he was being followed. This time, panic went through him as he saw 3 bears smacking his stuff around. One of the bears was standing up in the middle of the road just staring at him. He never finished the story of how he got out of that pickle, but clearly he did, otherwise I'm sure he wouldn't have been able to make that Reddit post. I was kinda hoping he would have finished the story by talking about his golden locks, but alas, humans always let me down. In our number 7 spot today, we have Leave It to Beaver. This is a story told by a woman who went on an overnight camping trip in the woods with her friends. She set up her tent and they all went to bed, only to be awakened by a really large smack out in the water. Apparently, she said that water carries sound extremely well, so it woke her and her friends up. Her first thought was that it was someone drunk with a gun who was shooting over the lake. Yeah, really? That was your first thought? I would have assumed that it was some criminal with a gun on his way to assassinate me, but I do have a very colorful imagination. After some inspection, it was discovered that it was just a beaver. Yep, a beaver was smacking the water before diving under. Ah, the sounds of the forest that we just don't know anymore because we now all live in a concrete jungle. Well, at least that's a funny story to laugh about afterwards. In our number 6 spot today, we have heavy sounds. This Reddit user admits that they are known to hunt, but in this particular case, they weren't hunting in the woods. It was in fact when this person was only 12, and he was looking for bottles in a creek on what he described as a dense, forested hillside. All of a sudden, he heard some pretty heavy footsteps behind him. He described them as slow, and they continued to get heavier and heavier. He felt paralyzed with fear, and he turned around only to see 2 large holes in the ground. A few seconds later, he realized that it was just the neighbor's cow that got out, and the cow's nose was inches from his face. Imagine turning around to be nose to nose with a cow just following you. So cute. I would honestly love that, unless it's a mean cow, but whoever heard of a mean cow? In our number 5 spot today, we have the red light. This is a story that happened to a Reddit user's father. Her father had been walking through the woods for a couple of hours when he decided to take a break and sit under a tree for a while. Okay, first off, why would anyone walk through any wood alone for more than an hour? Is that not concerning, like, at all? I get it. For spiritual journeys, perhaps. And maybe it's because I have no muscles and I'm physically defenseless, but still, why? Anyways, our story continues with this girl's dad trying to relax under a tree when a light starts flashing in his eyes. He looked around to see where it was coming from, but he couldn't find the source. He began to get nervous as he saw the red light moved down to his chest. But then he looked around to find the source, and some not so great guy was using a laser and aiming it at him. He yelled at him and started walking towards him, but of course the man ran away. He apparently didn't think it was someone trying to shoot him, but he did consider that someone could be out hunting and perhaps wasn't being careful. Honestly, he must have more faith in humanity, because I would have definitely assumed that. But curious to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comment section below. What would you have thought? In our number 4 spot, we have the hunters. In our next story, a field appraiser had to travel to a rural area in Kansas to take some measurements and photos of a bunch of 20-foot shipping containers that had appeared in the woods out of nowhere in the recent months. As he was inspecting them, he very quickly realized that they were being used as cabins for hunting season. As he was finishing up and on his way back to his car, he looked up to see 2 hunters in full gear, looking like snipers, pointing large rifles at him. Of course, it scared the crap out of him, and when they realized that he was harmless and not an animal, they got really mad at him and super mouthy, and then when they further realized what he was doing, they got even more mad. He tried to quickly finish up and leave because he didn't want to anger them further, but he said he didn't blame them for being annoyed and having their hunting session interrupted. Very understanding of him. In our number 3 spot, we have the rocks. This is a story of a man whom really loves to camp. He goes on a camping trip every year, and so this year was no different. He went to a beautiful area with a ravine in the middle of the forest, and he set up camp. He had a nice day, enjoying the wilderness, and then decided to go to bed. In the middle of the night though, he hears the sounds of rocks moving, but he decides to not think too much of it. When he woke up and left his tent the next morning, he found himself surrounded by a wall of rocks. Someone had built a rock wall around him while he was sleeping. Not knowing whether this was a threat or a joke, he decided to pack up and leave. He said that he had to move some of the rocks aside to make a path, and that wasn't without difficulty. He never went into the forest without protection again. Well, a rock wall sounds like a practical joke to me, but really? A rock wall? Who in their right mind would put that much effort into pranking or scaring a stranger? That's way too much effort. In our number 2 spot, we have the deserted cabin. This is a story of a hunter whom once went deep into the forest in the middle of nowhere, only to stumble upon what looked like an abandoned cabin. The cabin was very run down and not surrounded by water or trails or anything. He and his partner went inside to check it out. They walked through the kitchen and noticed some expired canned food lying on the counter. As they kept looking around, they began noticing some pretty dark things. Satanic symbols on the walls, a really weird painting with the words "His day will come" on it, and all kinds of books on magic and rituals. They saw a ton of flies surrounding the fridge and what looked like blood drops on the handle, and then they got so spooked that they agreed that it was time to leave. As they were walking outside of the house, they saw a campfire that had been ignited, and they immediately made a run for it. After much reflection, they are convinced that the owner was just hiding in the house, and they would have had seconds to live had they not discovered the fire. Terrifying. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the clown. This is a story told by a girl who was having a very anxious day, and so she decided to go get some fresh air and walk through the woods. She had a bad fight with her boyfriend, and as she was walking through the woods, she reflected on the fight and started crying. She heard a voice behind her that said, "Why are you crying?" She jumped and immediately turned around and saw a clown smiling so big right behind her. Instantly terrified to be alone in the woods with a clown, she told the clown that she was just having a bad day and "Thanks for asking." Fear began to flood through her as she politely said, goodbye, and began to walk towards where her car was parked. The clown began to walk too and asked if he could help in any way. She anxiously told him, no, that's okay, and started to walk faster. 1 second later, she heard her boyfriend calling to her, Rachel, what are you doing? Immediate relief flooded through her as she ran towards her boyfriend and gave him a hug. She turned around and the clown was gone. She's pretty positive that she would have been a goner if her boyfriend hadn't showed up. Well, that's terrifying and definitely makes me never want to go through the woods ever again.
Number 10. Skeleton Lake. Starting off our list, we have a story from Reddit about an abandoned cabin on the edges of Skeleton Lake in Ontario. The poster describes the odd situation he put himself in. He'd been coming to the lake for the past 23 years and the cabin had been abandoned as long as he could remember, and he had explored it on more than one occasion, but this time was different. He brought his camera. He had become enamored with abandoned buildings and thought that the spooky cabin would make good material. Boy, was he right. He managed to snap this picture while looking inside the cabin. What do you see there? It looks like some dark figure standing in the doorway, and commenters discuss how it can't be steam or other air particles since it seems to be casting a shadow. So maybe our explorer managed to catch some sort of dark entity on camera. Number 9. Roaring Fork. The Roaring Fork Trail is a 5.5 mile long loop in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, adorned with mills, historic buildings, and cabins. But even though many are abandoned, there is always one resident in the park. Lucy. The first sighting of Lucy was in 1910 when a man named Foster was headed back to his cabin and came across a woman in the middle of the trail who needed a ride. Naturally, he took her where she needed to go on his horse and noted that she had a fiery personality and felt very warm for it being such a cold night. He found himself falling head over heels for her as they talked through the night, and the next day he went to find her again. But when he went to the cabin where he dropped her off, only her parents were there, and explained that Lucy had died in a cabin fire 1 year earlier, and they'd rebuilt on the same plot of land. To this day, visitors report seeing a woman on the side of the road with no shoes looking for a ride. Number 8. Playing tricks. Another story from a Reddit user describes their experience of moving into a rental property, a cabin, near the edge of a river in Ohio. They say that from the moment the couple moved in, they had a strange feeling of being watched, like they were not alone. The wife would be woken up in the middle of the night to her hair being gently tugged or her feet tickled, and it only got worse from there. She even began to refuse to be alone in the house. Once, a toy car rolled down the hallway despite them not having any children or owning any sweet Hot Wheels, and the dog ran through the house on his own like playing with someone. But the final straw came when they had a few friends over for dinner, and suddenly the wife felt herself get smacked in the forehead, and everyone else in the room heard it. So they called the landlord and asked him to come over so they could tell him what had been happening. He told the couple that 7 years ago his young son Matthew had drowned in the river, and that he loved to play tricks on people. So perhaps that's what was happening. He shouted out that if Matthew was in the house, that he needed to stop playing tricks on this nice family, and from then on, no one was touched. But strange things did continue to happen until the couple moved out, and it's gone uninhabited ever since. Number 7. The portraits. One night in Colorado, a hunter got kind of lost. It had begun to snow and he couldn't catch his bearings to get back to his truck. He walked for what seemed like ages and came across a cabin. Thinking that he could ask the owners for help, he knocked on the door, but to his surprise, the door swung open. No one was inside, and he thought that he would just wait out the storm and explain it to the owners in the morning. As he laid on the bed, he looked around the sparsely decorated room and noticed that there was almost nothing in the room, other than a bed and a stove and some tools, but on all of the walls were picture frames, hung evenly across the entire place. Inside each was a portrait of a face, very realistically painted. He thought the owner must be an artist, but there were no art supplies to be seen. As he laid in the bed, he felt like all of the painted eyes were looking right at him, but he brushed it off as a trick of the light. But when he awoke in the morning, the sunlight beaming into the cabin, he looked around and realized there wasn't a single picture frame on the walls, only windows. Number 6. Cameron Lake. My family has a cabin in British Columbia, but next time I decide to go further and visit Vancouver Island, I'll make sure to steer clear of Cameron Lake. The cabins here seem to be haunted by multiple presences, including Grandpa Bonnie, who fills the room he died in with pipe smoke to let you know he's there. Some residents have seen what they called a 3-footed monkey at the end of their driveway from time to time, and the ghosts of 4 passengers who died in a small plane crash haunt the lake, as their bodies weren't found until 15 years later. Number 5. Foster Cabin. Situated in the middle of the log cabin village in Fort Worth, Texas, this cabin was once and still may be the home of a man named Harry Foster. These cabins were built in the 1800s, and Harry and his wife were excited to begin their lives together. But Harry had a drinking problem and a temper, and one night while she was in the bathroom, spritzing on her favorite perfume, which smelled like lilacs, he inexplicably beat her to death. After that, he married the nanny, who later died of suspicious circumstances. People who have visited the cabin since report that they heard footsteps in the empty attic, and and the smell of lilacs wafting through the air. Number 4. The Bone Setter. Just west of Camilla, Ontario in 1895, newspapers reported a real-life horror story that went down in an abandoned cabin. Dr. Robert Frame was a well-respected physician and bone setter, and so was his son. Both doctors and the rest of the Frame family lived in the cabin on Lot 16 until the early 1890s when they abandoned the place for greener pastures. Literally. The cabin was rented out multiple times in the following years, but no one stayed for long, claiming that they heard strange and disturbing noises coming from the attic at night. There was a group of woodcutters who stayed there while on the job, and they always heard a series of 3 knocks in different parts of the house, every night getting louder, even hearing them on the front door, which then swung open on its own. After that, they heard phantom footsteps upstairs and the knocking way more often. The police came to investigate, and what they found was shocking. Laid out neatly or stored in specimen jars were human bones and pieces from amputations. No one is sure whose they were, but it seems that one of the doctors had a secret collection, and that is where people claim the knocking was coming from. Restless spirits whose bones were put on display and then left to collect dust. Number 3. Camp Scott. June 1977, Mays County, Oklahoma. A Girl Scout troop was so excited for their first summer camping experience as they made their way out to Camp Scott. 3 of them, Lori, Doris, and Michelle, got checked in at the main cabin and after a day of fun, headed out to their tent, but unfortunately, they would never see the morning. A counselor found them when the sun came up and they had been strangled and left for dead. A truly horrifying scene. But even more chilling is the fact that the same counselor had found a strange note in their cabin that 3 campers would be murdered, but they did nothing about it. People who have visited the now abandoned camp have seen messages scrawled on the cabin walls asking why no one helped and hearing blood-curdling screams in the night. Number 2. Cabin 28. On April 11th, 1981, 2 intruders broke into Cabin 28 at the Keddy Resort, where a family had been staying, and they tortured and killed 4 people in a particularly gruesome fashion. They restrained John Sharp, Sue Sharp, and Dana Wingate, and proceeded to beat and stab them all multiple times. Sue was discovered with a stab wound so deep that it cut through her spinal cord. Dana had been strangled, and John died from blunt force trauma to the head. One more victim, Tina Sharp, had been abducted, and was not to be found until 3 years later when her head was discovered at the base of a waterfall nearby. The murder weapons were found at the scene, and one of the knives had been used with such force that it actually bent sideways. This grisly crime has still not been solved to this day, but in the years following, many people have broken into the cabin to see if they can feel the spirits of those who died there, and they got more than they bargained for. Chairs moved and even floated, threatening messages appeared scratched into the walls only to disappear moments later, and screams are heard nightly. Number 1. The Bell Witch Cabin. The Bell Witch incident is one of the most well-known hauntings in the United States, and it's frequently cited as the only known incident of a ghost legally being responsible for the death of a person. John Bell Sr. In 1804, John and his wife Lucy had just moved to the area of Red River and were creating a lovely little homestead with a successful farm. One night, John saw a strange creature with the head of a rabbit and the body of a dog in the cornrows. He tried to shoot at it a few times, but it ran away and he thought nothing more of it. Later that night, as the family was at dinner, they began to hear knocking at the door. When Lucy answered, there was no one there. The knocking came again, louder, but now from the windows. This continued all night, but there was never anyone outside the house. Over time, things began to fall over. They would hear footsteps or voices like an old woman singing hymns. They felt a strange presence and sometimes were touched by something invisible. When their daughter got engaged, the witch didn't care for her betrothed and systematically ruined their relationship by violently messing with the pair until they broke it off. The voice would scream nightly that one day it would kill John and continued to harass the family. Other townsfolk got wind of all this and came to witness the happenings, and they all attested that it was a real haunting. The witch would savagely beat John with invisible hands daily and make his tongue swell up so badly that he couldn't breathe. And one morning, Lucy found John dead, with a bottle of mysterious liquid on the floor, which she claims the witch used to poison him. Visiting the area now is not a good idea. There are plenty of reports of violent happenings that are attributed to the witch, so stay away from this cabin at all costs.
In our number 10 spot, we have the Jag. Yes, I'm referring to a jaguar. Why in the world someone would desert a beautiful jag in the woods is beyond me. And it's an oldie too. I tried to do some research and I'm pretty sure it's a 1957 Jaguar XK140, if that means anything to any of you car guys or gals watching out there. Jaguars are on my dream car list, so this just makes me sad to see. I'm gonna make up a story as to why it was here. Once upon a time, a couple in their 40s who were deeply in love went on a Sunday morning cruise. They decided to park and go for a walk in the woods, but suddenly, Bigfoot jumped out right in front of them and ate them. That was fun. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up as it really helps us out. In our number 9 spot, we have stripped for parts. Here we have a mysterious car in the woods that looks like it has been stripped for parts. Yes, I know this tale. It happened to a friend of mine who owned this car. Yes, times were tough and he realized that he didn't have enough money to buy groceries. Damn. He realized that he had this car. The car as a whole wasn't worth much, but separately the parts were. So he took the car out to the woods with a plan to take it apart. But when he was out there trying to take apart the car, he remembered something that he hadn't thought of before making this plan. He had no muscles. In fact, he was the weakest man in town, and just lifting up the hood was a mission. So he gave up and left the car in the woods. The end. In our number 8 spot, we have the clown car. Man, I wish I was a car person so I could tell you what this car is. If there is anyone watching that can name all of the cars on this list accurately, then I will dub you the GOAT of this channel. I shall bow down to you. I can't tell if this car was once orange or white. The orange could be rust, but it's quite vibrant. I'm gonna say there once was an orange car that was obviously driven by a clown that broke down while this clown was on his way to a birthday party. The car was the last straw in a series of unfortunate events that kept happening to him. He decided that this was a sign, and once and for all, he would quit clowning around. And he never looked back. The end. In our number 7 spot, we have the traffic jam. Okay, this picture is wild. There are at least 10 or maybe more old cars jammed together in the middle of the forest. What in the world could this be? Either a car dealership owner was just like, hey, Mario, get rid of them, dump them in the wood. That was a horrible Italian accent. Or it was a fine Sunday morning in 1953 and all of the townsfolk from Bennisville, South Carolina were driving to the woods to go to the annual summer picnic. They all parked their cars in the woods and then went on to their lunch. But around 3 p.m. that day, an alien spaceship came to Earth and knocked out the power everywhere, which meant none of the cars worked. All the townspeople had to walk home. So sad. The cars never worked again, and so they left them there. Let me know which story you think would be more likely in the comment section below. I'm going with the latter. In our number 6 spot, we have the 90s mom car. This mysterious abandoned car was obviously left behind by a 90s mom who was probably driving with her 2 kids one Friday morning to visit their grandma. With Dunkaroos in hand and Backstreet Boys on the radio, the kids were happy, and if they were happy, she was happy. Finally, she didn't have to hear them whine for 5 minutes. While driving, they spotted a lake with a bunch of swans in it, so they pulled over to get a closer look. She didn't realize until she got back to the car that the gas had been leaking out of the car, and now she was out of gas and couldn't go anywhere. It was cold, so the kids went back to whining. They walked for about 20 minutes to find a payphone when suddenly they saw those big, holy golden arches that bring everyone joy. Hooray, they said. God bless McDonald's. All was well. The end. That's probably what happened. In our number 5 spot, we have the gangster car. Don't ask me what kind of car this is because the only reply you will get is, a gangster's car? This looks like the kind of car you would see an Italian gangster own in old movies. Who actually owned it and its real story, who knows? It looks like it could have also been owned by Gatsby. Whoever owned it though, most likely was rich because even if you owned a car during this time, that meant that you had more money than most. There's also a boat beside it that was also seemingly deserted, so I can imagine that clearly whoever owned these very pricey items were discarding them because they were, evidence in a top secret crime committed by the CIA themselves. Yes, this car and this boat is evidence of their involvement in many dirty dealings, and so if you want to, once and for all, expose the CIA for doing the opposite of what they're meant to do and committing crimes themselves, then go and look for this car and boat. In our number 4 spot, we have the backyard of cars. There is an old abandoned house in the UK with a giant backyard filled with old cars. Why, you may ask? Well, there is actually an interesting story behind it that is supposed to be true. Actually, this one I'm not making up. Apparently the owner was obsessed with the idea of World War III happening, and so he collected a bunch of cars to eventually sell for scrap metal, but unfortunately he passed away, and so the cars and the property have been sitting there abandoned for 20 years. He probably was a fan of John Titor, the time traveler who warned everyone that World War III was coming. Probably. In any case, it's quite the sight to see, as the cars are now covered in rocks and plants and have kind of become one with the earth. Apparently all the cars are classic cars, and even though none of them are extremely rare, it has been said that it is quite the collection to see. In our number 3 spot, we have the garbage car. Okay, this car kind of makes me crazy to look at because it was clearly used to store garbage. But why, I wonder. It looks like it's been stuffed to the rim with paint cans, possibly. Honestly, I don't know what that is. If you can make it out, let me know. Some kind of tin can. It just makes me sad to see. Couldn't they have found a garbage bag to put them in? Why the car? Couldn't they have sold its parts, or at least brought it to a junkyard? Maybe the owner couldn't have and they needed to leave it. I don't know. Maybe underneath those cans, though, is the skeleton of a body, and that's why they're packed to the rim. To convince people that it's just filled with garbage when really it's covering up a crime. Dun dun dun. In our number 2 spot, we have the Mustang. This abandoned car has created a bit of an uproar online, as Mustang lovers are quite hardcore, or so I have now learned. Again, not too much of a car person, so this is news to me, but yeah, this car being deserted has made people sad. I wish I could tell all of you Mustang lovers where it is so you could go and see it, but sadly no location to report. It's probably hidden deep in the woods where no one can find it because its owner was so obsessed with it that he thought if he couldn't drive it, then no one can. And on that train of thought, he thought no one should be able to see it as well. It was his precious. In our number 1 spot, we have the vibrant blue car. This vibrant blue car that's been abandoned looks like it was possibly a part of a crash. The angle of the picture isn't great, so it's kind of hard to see if it actually crashed into the back of perhaps a green car in front of it or not. You can't really tell. However, the hood of the car looks like it's dented slash bending upwards, if that makes sense, which would indicate a crash. Also, I'm not sure if those are airbags that have blown up in the car, but it sure looks like it could be. Either that, or there's just a lot of garbage that has piled up in the car from over time. In any case, it looks like it was quite the pretty car in its prime. I'm not one to like colored cars, honestly. I like your basic black or white, but this blue is really pretty. I would never ever buy a car this color, but I can admire it from afar.